guys. Yes, so you can hear me. Liz from Leeds, Ali. Hi, Ali from Milton Keynes. I know Ali. Great to see some names. So I've got Norfolk, South Yorkshire, all over the place. A few Oxfords. Oh, hi, Rick. Great to hear from you. Brilliant. Lovely to have someone from Oxford City Council. You're good attendees here, aren't you guys? So I will keep an eye on that. Oh, my furthest away is, it would have been East Lothian, Tracy, but sorry, you've been pipped by Finland. Oh gosh, Ashley from Hertfordshire, currently in Australia. Oh my word, you definitely get the winning one then. Given that we're in Hertfordshire and you're coming all the way from Australia. Ashley, whereabouts in Australia are you? And what time is it? It must be the middle of the night, mustn't it? Right, so let me crack on with the content and introduce myself. So the purpose or the topic of this actual webinar is how to make mentoring work in your organization. And I decided to do this webinar because actually one of our previous ones that some of you on here may be on it was saying that you wanted to set up mentoring programs, and a chat occurred within one of our webinars where a number of people said, yes, I'd really like to do that, which we then went on and contacted those people and brought a group of them together to do a collaboration focus group, which is basically sharing each other's ideas. So therefore some of the content here came from ideas from people like you who attended a webinar, and also some of it's based on my experience in my past as well. Oh, I've just got to give a shout out to Meng from Cambodia. Welcome. So if you haven't met me before, my name's Lucinda. My background, I spent 20 odd years in corporate learning and development roles. So I have actually set up a number of mentoring programs and learnt along the way. So some of the things I've learnt from it, I'm going to share with you. I'm the founder and CEO of Actus Performance Management Software. I also host the HR Uprising Podcast. So I will be recording a podcast on this as well, because I think it's a topic that lots of people want to know more about. And the perfect stocking filler is the best-selling book, How to Be a Change Superhero. You know that that's what you want for Christmas. Okay, so moving on. The learning points of this particular session are, we're going to talk about why might we want to talk or build a mentoring program in a virtual environment. Why is it something that's particularly relevant at the moment? What pitfalls do you want to avoid if you're trying to set up a mentoring program? We're also going to talk about how you might want to set and manage expectations for mentors and mentees, and practical tips and learning from people who have done it and got the t-shirt. So going back to our chat here, my question for you actually now is, why is now a great time to think about mentoring? What do you think? Why would that be something that's particularly useful right now? Or why have you decided to attend this webinar? Presumably it was a topic that is relevant or of interest to you. So use the chat and let us know why you think this is particularly pertinent. Yes, absolutely. So it's Dee Covell. I feel like I should know your name, but I don't know your first name there. So if you're able to change your thing, I'll be able to see who it is. But you're saying that people feel isolated and they don't have immediate interaction with colleagues. So actually, if you had a mentoring, a structured relationship, it would help. Christine's tried to get interest, not getting interest. Is that from mentors or from people wanting mentees? That's interesting. People feel uncertain, so that helps them if you've got a mentor, maybe with their career path. Need for knowledge sharing and reducing silos, getting the best out of people. Joe, you want to set up a mentoring scheme. It's about connecting people. It's about helping people who are missing out on opportunities that they might have otherwise have had. And so you might have had something informal, mightn't you? If we were in an office, and that's one of the things that people are feeling, those informal relationships are less available. And actually often mentors are people who are more senior, and there is some concern, excuse me, that people are not getting access to those people, to those resources. So yes, it's become a little bit more transactional in a virtual requirement, says Caesar. And Rick, you set up a coaching program and keen to also set up a mentoring program. Yes, that will be an interesting, because we will look at the difference between coaching and mentoring, and to see whether it will be the same principle or otherwise in terms of that. If you want to write any more about what your coaching program does or who does the coaching, I'd be interested in that. So it's about supporting people. It's about people's development. It's about making people connected in these uncertain times, and it's giving people access to individuals and skills and knowledge that they might not have otherwise had. I mean, the things that let's see what we've covered here. I think those are all the points that you've turned here, but it's a great time to think about it. So remote working, career development, we've said that, talent retention, engagement is a topic that people are talking a lot about now. Supporting on-the-job learning when people are more remote. So there's this whole idea of 70-20-10 approach to learning. So mentoring also supports on the job. So you don't have to send people on a formal training course, it's giving them support in that way. The other reason it's good to think about mentoring is actually, I say Christine, I think it was, who said earlier, she hadn't been able to get people interested. Sometimes there is an issue because you have a limited mentoring resource, so you have to think about managing it. The other one is, think about, if you are going to introduce something, make sure that it's effective, that it meets the purpose that you want to do it, and it's not just an expression. A bit like coaching, you sometimes hear managers say, oh, I was a mentor, or I gave someone some coaching, but actually that might not be, strictly speaking, what they were doing. So it's worth thinking about why we do it. But undoubtedly, in these remote times where people are feeling isolated, where we want to find new effective ways of developing people, then this is a very good time to think about doing it, but doing it properly. So what I wanted to understand from your point of view, if you are thinking of setting one up, or you might do in the future, what would your strategic driver be for setting one up? And I think it's quite important to think about strategic drivers. When we did our collaboration focus group, I had 9 people on it, and there were 5 different strategic drivers. So these are the examples that they had. So one was about remote working, making visibility of expertise more difficult. The second one was about underpinning employee engagement. So we want to make sure people feel engaged. So if you make those connections, those relationships, that will help it. The other one was about, maybe you have a specific demographic that you want to nurture, whether it's diversity or it's rising talent. So you want to put in place a formalized mentoring program. It could be part of succession planning. If you've got a whole talent management approach, it might be part of that, succession planning or talent retention. It might be supporting ongoing skill transfer, on the job learning, embedding a learning culture, or you just think it's time you had it as part of this. Yes, Lisa, I'll explain 70-20-10, and while you're still voting, so go for your main driver. And I guess if you haven't got a driver, if you're not necessarily going to do it, then what do you think you would choose? Why do you think it would be a good reason to do mentoring if you're interested in it at the moment? Think about how you can vote there. So the 70-20-10 approach to learning, Lisa, is where we're saying that actually people learn a huge amount by on-the-job learning. So they say that actually 70% of our learning should be through active on-the-job. And then it's down to coaching and supporting, and then it's more formal learning opportunities is actually a very small amount of it. So often we find that individuals expect training courses, and if you're in learning and development, you almost feel like you have to provide people with a formal training, but actually a lot of how we learn could be through informal opportunities, as I say, so it's learning through being on the job, but having something like a mentor can help you get more from it. Same with a coach, because you can use that to reflect on your skills and learning as to what you got out of it. So it's basically breaking it down. It's not just about formal or e-learning. It's about us thinking about we're learning all the time. Think about how much more you know about using Microsoft Teams or Zoom or any of those things this year. Did you go on a training course? No. Did you play around with it until you could work it properly? Or did you ask someone else? So you learn on the job. A lot of us have learned on the job this year. So let's see what we've said in terms of our polls. That's what we thought the main drivers from this audience. So hopefully you can see it now. So the main reason here, it's significant reason, is that most of you want is to help people with skill transfer on the job learning. So it's about developing a learning culture. And so it might be actually helping. So setting people up with a mentor to help them have the key skills that they need. And again, because they're remote in main ways. Succession planning or talent retention is the second aspect. So that's a little bit more about the individual. So I see the skill transfer or on the job learning being more about tasks and teaching people the skills that they need to be successful in their job, maybe because they're remote, that we haven't got a formalized way of doing it at the moment. In terms of succession planning, I see that as being more about the individual's career aspirations. So keeping people motivated or engaged in the organization. And that wouldn't be too dissimilar to employee engagement. But all of those are valid reasons. and that's why I asked you there really, is they are valid reasons to set up a mentoring program. And actually it could be similar. So Rick is University of Suffolk. You've got 30 internal coaches who are coaching across departments. So you can have the same sort of approach with a mentoring approach. So thinking about mentoring and coaching, is anyone able to put in the chat, could you explain the difference between them? I know it's quite a hard question to ask in a chat. How would you say a mentor is different to a coach? I'll read some of your examples here. Okay, so Janita saying you could use resource if you've got people on furlough. That would be quite a smart way of doing it. If you've got potential mentors could be used who are on furlough or reduced work week, so they've got more time they would do otherwise. Jade saying if you could have greater knowledge transfer across your trust, that would be good. So Amy saying coaching is more formal. Let's say mentoring is more unstructured, being there, says Kate. Coaching more structured, results oriented. Yep. Jade says mentor shares knowledge. My chat's gone too fast for me then. I think there's some good stuff there. Mentor shares knowledge and experience having worked in the same environment or job role. That is a more common approach to it. That's the mentoring is someone imparting knowledge while coaching, as helping people find their own answers. See, so that's a nice definition. I like that. Nadia says there's a big difference. Mentoring is providing guidance and direction, whereas coaching is helping someone find the answers themselves. Yeah, I think that's a really good a good definition in terms of this. Now, I have to remember that you could use the verb that they were coaching or mentoring somebody, but I think in terms of that approach, that's very much the same. Heat recruitment we've got here, mentoring can be more telling, coaching is more about asking questions. So those are certainly the way I'd see it. Sharon's saying coaching is without advice. And I think that is, if we're being really purist, I would agree with that as well. Yeah, Kirsty, mentor shares their experiences rather than the coach who doesn't offer the answers. So yes, that's what I would agree. So that's where, see what I came up with earlier, because I think we're very much on the same page. And this is being purist. It's quite, there is blurring between the two terms. The reality is they do blur. There is some overlap. But generally speaking, the mentor is outside of your direct line, as in it's not your line manager. So it's someone usually more senior to you, but they may well have specialist knowledge, expertise, or behaviors. So quite often they can help you in your career path. Maybe they can open doors for you. But as many of you say, they may well be more likely to tell or share. So mentoring, it's allowed, if you like. Anyone who's been traditionally trained to be a coach, is that we shouldn't really be planting answers. If you're a coach, as a coach, we should be asking open questions. We should be getting people to think of things themselves. We should be helping them to come up with their own answers, and also their own commitments through questioning. So it should be less tell. If you thought about it as the word is now escaping me, but you know what I'm talking about, either ends of a continuum, then I would say mentoring in terms of the tell and ask. So mentoring is more acceptable to be more tell, and coaching, it's less acceptable to be tell. It's not wrong to occasionally, to say, may I make a suggestion if you're coaching somebody? And it's certainly, as a mentor, if you have coaching skills, i.e. the ability to ask questions and to listen really carefully, then that will probably make you a better mentor, in my experience. So mentors who have the ability to coach, that's great. So they're able to coach or share, but they are able to suggest information. So mentoring, I think, is much more formal and structured than line manager coaching. There should be a defined relationship and cadence, and I'll go into that. And I believe it should have a defined start, end, and outputs. This is my recommendation. This is based on experience that I've had in organizations where there can be certain problems if we're very, very relaxed about how we introduce mentors. So I think we can see that there. So in terms of that, it's more about a career path, and then coaching might be more about behaviors or specific support on a behavior or challenge that we have. So spectrum, thanks, Helen. Yeah, spectrum or continuum was the word I was going for, but I was struggling with my words there. So one of the issues, or a number of the issues that you can find with introducing a mentoring program, and I know this because I've experienced it in organizations, is that You either have the relationships fizzle out because no one really knows why they are. You're given someone who's a mentor. It's kind of a nominal term. That's my mentor, but it doesn't really mean anything. And either party, they don't connect or they don't take it seriously. One or other party lets the other one down. The other angle of it is it goes on indefinitely. So what happens there is that you've got a handful of great senior mentors in the organization, but after a relatively small amount of time, they are fully committed to mentees and there's no way for them to be released. So then you get somebody who's already a senior manager in the organization who's still got the mentor of the FD, and no one else who might benefit from it gets the access to them. In terms of that. So then you run out of mentors if that happens. If it's very ad hoc, then there's no sort of structure, and unless the mentor is a particularly good coach and very experienced, then the benefit is limited in terms of where they are. And that is, of course, a problem because mentors may vary in skill and motivation. So you're just going to have inconsistent relationships and results. It sounds really highfalutin. It's great to have got a mentor, but what does that actually mean? Do I get anything out of it? Is it good use of either party's time? And those are the issues that you need to be aware of if you just go, oh, I'm just going to set up a mentoring program. So with that, what are we going to do if we are going to set up a mentoring program? So my question to you is, what do you think you need to think about if you were setting up a mentoring program? And if you've set one up, what have you thought about? Can't use the chats. I'm waiting for some. They come in a flurry. I think there's a bit of a delay for when your chats come through. Great, thank you, Kirsty. First up, so you want to think how to promote it and get people to sign up. Absolutely. And by people, you're talking about the mentors or the mentees? He's thinking about what skill gaps might a mentor help with. So that some of that might be about matching your mentors with your mentees. So different people might have different skills in an organization. Are they the technical experts? Are they a particularly expert in a specific behavior? Marie, absolutely. Mentor and mentee needs, how to best match. Availability, you've got to think about that. Matching, so that's coming through. I would definitely agree. Skills gap analysis first. Tell me more about that, Sam. What is it? Are you thinking about who deserves a mentor? Brenda, yeah, absolutely. Clarity of objectives and why. So why are we doing this? So going back to why I asked your strategic reason, if you're just thinking we're doing a mentoring program because it might be a good idea, maybe come back to why are we? Is it because, so Sam's saying a skills out, is that what you mean? Have we got a gap in terms of our high potentials and not getting the support they need? So I don't know if it's a skill gap for mentoring necessarily, but I might not be interpreting your statement because it's just written there. I would think is it about a support gap or helping people to get that access to people who can open paths? It's often to do with career. So it's maybe is it a resource or an ability for you to provide support in the organization? Is that missing? Now you're saying you need to think about how you can set up a self-sustaining mentor scheme where people have been mentored, become mentors themselves. Absolutely. So it's sustainable. Rick said, even better, make people seek out their own mentors. You see, that will work to a certain extent, but you will have the same issue where there was a guy called Andy Shenton, the business owner, where everyone wanted him as the mentor. He was just great, but they can only take on a handful of them. So that's the thing you've got to be careful about. Defining time commitment. Emma's coming here. Now, this is where we're starting to get a definition, and Sammy's saying as well. So think about, how do we manage it? Have we got a clear process? Is there an application process? How to identify mentors? What's the time commitment? How to make sure it's fully accessible? So there's lots to think of. Toolkit for the mentor and mentee, showing the outcomes of the mentoring program. Absolutely. So there's quite a lot to think about, actually, isn't it? It's not so easy for it to do. So these are 6 elements that I think, and I'll go through each of these in turn, that I think are worth thinking about, and I'll talk to you a little bit about them. We have got a couple of resources, and we'll have some more resources that we'll make available there. If you just hold that back a minute, that's, I don't know if you can hold that poll back, Helen, just let me just run through them first and then we'll go through it because people might not know what I mean. So the first one is think about your matching of mentor and mentee. So you would need to, before you do that, think about your pool of potential mentors. And the point of that is actually, have they got the technical knowledge, or most technical knowledge is one thing, or seniority? Are they the right sort of type of person to be held up as a mentor? You also need to think, have they got the right aptitude or attitude? So are they faintly interested in developing people? So you might have someone who's an amazing technical expert, but actually they're not that interested in people. So they may not be a great mentor, although you'd love to have them on the mentor list and everyone would love to be mentored by them. So you have to think about both personality and skill in terms of potential mentor, your mentoring pool. And similar, I think, in terms of your mentees, depending on your why, if this is, let's say it is a high potential program or a diversity program, then you need to be quite selective about your pool of mentees. It's not that everybody gets a mentor. I think it's quite hard. If you're going to manage it as an overall program, you need to think quite carefully about how you manage and monitor it. And then when you actually put people together, then there's a combination of thinking about both their technical skills. So actually, if I want to go into finance, then I might want somebody who's a mentor in that area. But personality wise, I might want someone who is going to stretch me. Now, this is where it's maybe a luxury, but I'll talk about it a little bit more in terms of the training and kickoff in a moment. But you might think that this particular person is a real people person waffler. Do you therefore put them with another people person waffler, I'm stereotyping, as the mentor? Or do you put them with someone who's going to be different? Now, my preference would be to put them with someone who's slightly different. The risk is that they may clash. And this is where it fits things like coaching. So if you've ever heard of things like charisma match, they might clash, but on the other hand, they might be aware of each other's blind spots and learn more from that difference of style. So this leads into our training or kickoff. So when I used to launch a mentoring program, I would do a half-day kickoff back in the day when you could do training courses, but you could just do a couple of hours or something. And what we would do is we would do some sort of personality tool, and both parties would share their results. So although you can't automatically you can't really predict who's going to get on from a personality point of view. So we would select the mentor and mentee based on where we thought that they would have the best technical or skill fit. But then we would do some training, which in the training would talk about the expectations and responsibilities of the program, which I'll go into in a moment, but it would also build some self-awareness of their different personality styles. So to flex then, if you're the mentee and you've got a mentor who is quite down to earth and quite likes things to be quick, sharp, ordered, both parties have to accommodate each other, but you might need to think about managing your approach to be most effective for them and not waste their time, right? Whereas if you've got someone who's chatty and relaxed, then you may adapt your style there. So it's really about promoting self-awareness, which I think is useful in most relationships, coaching, management, etc. So we would provide some sort of launch training kickoff where we'd formalize what this mentoring program was about. And then these are the rules we would build around it. So we actually said that this mentoring program is something that is defined. It was predefined in terms of the frequency, the purpose, and the ground rules. And we call that contracting. Now, we actually, when we were running an internal program, we would actually predefine those. So let's say this particular purpose, we know what the strategic purpose was. We could select one of those purposes we had on the earlier slides. But we set up ground rules around who was responsible for setting up the meetings, who was responsible for following through on the actions from the meetings, who was responsible for arranging the meetings, things like that. And that would all sit down to the mentee, right? We would say that the mentee is predominantly getting the benefit out of the relationship. Therefore, they have to take ownership for these and set up and respect the relationship. Either party could choose to stop it if they wanted to. So there was they call it contracting. We've actually got a contract. If you want an example of one, I've got one which is available to you. We'll send it out we'll send it out in terms of with the slides afterwards if anyone wants to have a look at that to compare it. But we also so in those ground rules, it was just saying who was responsible for what the purpose was, and also how frequently they would meet. And our recommendation was that they would have a relationship which would last for at least 6 meetings. but no more than 12, and for a period of time that was 9 months to no more than 12. And we expected that the meetings, and this could be virtual meetings, would be about 90 minutes. So we set boundaries to that relationship, which was quite important. And I think this is where some of you are saying it needs to be valued by senior managers. This allows you to free up some of your mentors. It allows you to have that churn. The reality is that if you've had someone as a mentor and you had a great relationship with them, you'll always be able to pick the phone up to them. But it's not fair for you to kind of have them as your mentor for the entirety of your career in an organization. That's my opinion anyway. You need to be able to churn that mentor pool and maybe go and become a mentor yourself, absolutely, but you might go on to have somebody else as a mentor. So by setting those centrally, these are what the expectations are. It made it a lot easier for people to have clarity about what the expectation was. It also meant that where mentors didn't want to sign up, they were more prepared to, because they could see actually we were only asking for 90 minutes of their time, let's say once every 6 weeks, and most of them felt they could handle that. So that's about the frequency. We defined, you can work out what's right for your organization, but we just define that frequency, purpose, and ground rules. And we give people this contracting, which would take place at that launch and that kick-off meeting. And that also included accountabilities. So that defined what the mentor was accountable for and what the mentee was accountable for. And predominantly that put the pressure on the mentee to keep the relationship going. Now, you could, of course, you still need oversight. So by providing oversight, this is typically, probably you guys would do this. I would often be the person who'd be the oversight. So I would be the person managing the overall relationship or process. And what that meant is that a mentee or a mentor could come to me and say if their relationship wasn't working, or if there wasn't it wasn't a fit, or something happened where the process wasn't working. That oversight also, we took this a stage further when we did we iterated this process. We actually got to the point where, in fact, this is when I was an external consultant and I provided this mentoring oversight role, which sometimes is easier than when you're inside internal, because you could dedicate more time to it. And what we did with the oversight was we actually asked people to define 2 or 3 SMART objectives or objectives that they were going to work on within that relationship. Now, those were confidential to the oversight person, the mentor and the mentee, but we did ask them to share it and also to rate their progress on it at, I think there were 2 or 3 sort of milestones within the relationship. And the idea of that was to hold everybody accountable for this being a purposeful relationship as opposed to a nice chat. So the mentee thinking, actually, this is what I want help in, this is what I want to explore with my mentor, and both sides of them actually feeling they'd progressed it. What we did was get them to define and document it and track against it to make progress on that. And that did work. It wasn't the first time we did it, but that was something which was quite interesting to give it more focus than some might have. And then define an end point. So we always said it was going to end by a certain point, and then we actually did cohorts of mentoring programs there. That doesn't have to be the case for you, but certainly I think it is quite useful to make sure there is an end to that relationship. As I said earlier, it allows people to free themselves up on for something else as well. So those are key aspects that I think we need to think about when we're going out of this. And I think let me just check if there's any other feedback. So Tom says, to get the best out of the process, does a mentor need ongoing support from HR? So I'd say that's your oversight. So it might be HR, it might be L&D, whoever that person is. If you think about what proper coaches or counsellors do, they have a supervisor who they go to if they've had a difficult time. So someone who can provide them with coaching. So that's the key there. So I think we've picked up most of the points there. So now if I was to put the poll up, I've explained each of those. I'm interested to you in which of these you think might be the most important for you to do, or one maybe that you think you hadn't thought about that you'd want to do more about it. And if you want to add anything in the chat, do feel free to add in the chat if there's something you want to expand on it. 52% voted. Okay, give it just a few more seconds, then we'll close the poll and share the results. Okay, that's great. So matching mentor and mentee, people feel that is one of the most important. Yeah, I think it is important. I'm not sure it is. I actually think, although I think I've divided these into two, I personally think that contracting and accountabilities, which you could argue are one and the same thing, I actually think those are probably the most important. I thought afterwards. So having been someone who's run a few, just because if you don't, the matching matters. I think you need to have them all in place, don't you? If you've got the contracting, then it's fine, then you focus on matching. But if you match people but you don't set the expectations clearly, then you can actually waste your mentors, and you can end up having relationships that may be disappointing, an experience. It can tarnish the whole thing. So I certainly would say that all those steps are pretty important there, and it's interesting to see what you guys think as well. Setting objectives and the mentee having ownership. I think so, because the mentee is getting the benefit out of it. Put that responsibility. If you want a mentor, there's probably other people. We all have organizations where the usual suspects get all the kind of credit or recognition. Then actually we need people to step up and take accountability if they are to benefit from it, I would say. They're going back again to our training, because there's not always huge numbers of mentors who have unlimited amounts of time to develop people unless they want to take on their own development. So those were the key points that I wanted to share with you today. Really keen to hear if they were useful to you, any takeaways. If any of you are running mentoring programs successfully and have any takeaways that you'd be happy to share on the chat with others, please do pop those in, because it is great if people get that information. So pop your takeaways in there. In terms of the resources, Helen's already popped the contract in, so you feel free to use that if you want. So it's the mentoring contract template. I'll probably be writing some more guidelines, because I've got a handbook that you can use if you do want to do a kickoff, but that just needs to be set up and branded. So we'll make that available soon. It will go on our resources page. All of our learning resources things, we've got lots of resources. Do feel free to look for those. So I hope it did help there. Thanks for joining, guys. If you are looking for any training, just letting you know about our virtual training courses that have gone on really, really positively. Our virtual manager training has, it's been a hugely popular one. So we are running in-house programs on virtual manager training. I'm going to launch another change superhero course, which people who want to work with me if you're managing change. And we've got a brand new course called Accelerate Exec. If there's anything you're interested in there, that is aimed at your entry-level employees, basically people perhaps who've joined the workplace in a virtual world, which has been a bit of a strange one, hasn't it, for many of us. So it's about giving them the foundational skills to be successful, despite the fact that their career has started in a remote working environment. So for high potentials, grads, that sort of thing, Accelerate Exec. So any of that information, you can get more data from our website on those different courses. And we've now got our our webinar series for next year. And actually, if there's any people who are still there, if you don't remember, we'll just put a final poll up, say what else you'd like us to talk about. So if these webinars are of value to you, then do let us know what you'd like us to cover. So there's and just final feedback polls are up there. Really, really grateful to you if you can let us know, because it helps us decide what we're going to cover next. So next year in January, we're going to focus on appraisal, because we know lots of people are doing that. So we're going to go back to the model where we've got webinars aimed at HR, but also webinars aimed at line managers. And you can see we've got different topics, got engagement coming up and various different topics. So is anything else you'd like to see us do a webinar on? Be really happy to take your recommendations, and that would be great. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for polling and letting us know what you found of use and what you'd like us to talk about further. Yeah, employee engagement is definitely up there. Constructive feedback culture. Okay, that's quite a good one. Yes, actually, culturally. Diversity and inclusion, climate of trust. Some NLP. Great. Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, guys. Have a great day, and actually have a great Christmas. I'm saying my Christmas jumper. Being lovely to join in. I hope you're going to join join afterwards. Yes, if you don't worry, we will send you the slides and we will send you a link to the recording. I think if we recorded this, but I'm also, Sarah, I'm going to turn it into a podcast as well. So if you keep an eye on the HR Uprising podcast, there'll be a podcast link there as well, which will go out in January. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.